a little bit. I mean, just barely feel it hitting the mirror. That's about how tight you want to touch the mirror. Just enough to touch, not enough to squeeze.
You do all 3 points with the screw in. You don't have 1 or 2 points on the spring load.
1 or 2 points on the what?
That you 1 or 2 points that get spring loaded. Instead of having all 3 with screws alone. You can still have all 3 screws, but if you have 2 of them, or even 1 of them.
So that they're all touching all the time, yes, with the right tension.
Just make sufficient tension on it. You don't have to do much.
Right. No, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Although I don't know what actually happens. I mean, that mirror has to come in and out quite a bit.
How much does it have to go up and down? About an inch and a half?
Probably. So I don't know if it would ever be a binding issue of that thing, you know, going up and down.
And what kind of material do you have in the plastic? What kind of plastic is it?
It's black dough ready. So it's kind of greasy. It's got kind of a self-lubricating quality. And they're sanded so that they fit the profile of the round mirror. Those little metal tabs, or the plastic tabs, are not hitting the mirror in one spot. They're hitting it kind of on around.
And the mirror itself, in those places where you have these pads, is the mirror very smooth there? It has to be there?
No, the edges of this mirror are not very smooth.
Maybe you put a coating on it that makes it smooth in that particular spot.
Yeah.
That may help too.
That may help. So in response, the way I use these is very sort of touchy-feely. I kind of feel like I know how tight to make them. And when I'm ready to image, I'll bring them down that tight. And sometimes I miss it. And when I miss it, I know it because I get triangular stars. So if I would test image, if I got triangular stars, I just back them off a little bit. But anyway, I feel like it gets rid of most of the flags. So I'm not sure I would recommend you do it. Because, you know, it's doing something in your scope you really shouldn't do. And then, so here was the next thing. My periodic error. This is my unguided periodic error. And you can see there's vertical lines here where the worm cycle is every 4 minutes. And you can see the worm cycle here. One peaks out right there and there and there and there. So that's my period. That's my true periodic error for the worm. But on top of that, so you know, I had a pretty good mount from as a stock mount. The native periodic error I would estimate to be, you know, maybe plus minus 3 arc seconds, which is not bad for one of these things. And so I wasn't real unhappy with that. But the problem was there was this extra junk in there, this peak and that peak and that peak and that peak. And it wasn't periodic with the 4-minute worm cycle. And this is well known to people who have these mounts. If you do a Fourier transform with this curve, you see 76-second period here. So this little rough stuff in here repeats every 76 seconds. And it's a little too fast to really want to be guiding on that. So it's kind of unfortunate. And it turns out that here's the worm right here. Sorry, here's the worm here, right here, the y-axis. This is the worm. And that worm is held by these 2 mirror blocks. There's one here and there's one off the image. And there's a bearing in here. And it turns out that 76-second error is the amount of time it takes one of the bearings in that little bearing to get from one position to the identical. Every 76 seconds, those bearings repeat. And they roll once. And so that's what this is. Those bearings are a little bit noisy. So I just took them out and replaced them with the best ones that I could find, and I got to here by making I changed this little piece to this bearing.
Where did you find it?
There's a company called McMaster that sells bearings, and I just bought their highest quality bearing.
So it's the same size and shape and load, it's just higher.
It's just that I don't know.
Balls themselves around
It's supposed to be better or not, whatever came with this mount, or maybe that particular one just had a problem. Or maybe it was just mounted crooked. I don't know what it was.
So that sometimes is the reason for the 76 seconds is a crooked mounting.
It's just they're not mounted, they're not seated correctly. And maybe just changing them.
Well, or the block itself is not seated, or aligned.
This whole block.
The whole block, yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
Because those blocks just kind of move independently.
They move, they're completely independent, and every time you went, you sent it down.
That would scare me.
Yes.
Or not scare me, but disturb me because it's not quite as precise as you want.
It's not at all. You're sitting holding and your fingers trying to tighten her down.
Oh, you can say the two end caps aren't soldered together?
Sorry?
The two blocks are not soldered together.
They're not soldered together, they are independently tightened, and so you can very easily get them in a situation where they bind. Yeah. Anyway, but you can mess with the bearings and get from here to here. Now this is guidable. And again, it's the periodic error maybe plus minus 3 arc seconds, and I don't see much of that 76 stuff anymore. And so at this point I'm happy and I move on. So again. Alright, so that's enough. I can talk more about equipment, but that's enough. I mean, so just give you the flavor that you want to pay attention to what your equipment's doing and do what you can to try to fix the biggest thing that's going on here. And then when you see the next biggest problem pop up, then figure out how to fix that. And work on that. Here's another really good tip that I use. And I don't remember, it's hard to, probably everybody does this in their own way, but you really need to do this, and that's to have a good plan when you go out there. And the plan I like to do is this sort of a quadrant method. You want to plan for early and late. Because you kind of have two cycles with the gem anyway. You've got kind of two segments in the evening. You've got going up and going down, and you kind of want to have a plan for not knowing whether or not it's going to be good seeing or bad seeing. And if it's good seeing, then you kind of go for a target like M1 or something you know is going to take advantage of the night. And if it turns out to suck, then you need to have a plan B. And so that's got to be something big. Maybe. And then in my case, plan B is usually shooting through the AED, something big, so that when the scene's bad, I can still do something. So just make a little, I always, even though I've got all computer stuff, I still take a piece of paper and divide it before, and I know what I'm going to be shooting, if it's good or bad, or early or late. So that helps a lot. So you've got to take advantage of your time. All right, so this is pretty much it. I just wanted to reiterate all of the talk about calibration last time is really, really important, but it's not so critical that you have to do it out there. I do all my darks in the fridge at home, or in the freezer, or in the backyard, whichever temperature is closest to where I was. And then, even if it's 5 degrees different from UES, in automatic dark correction, scaling just plus takes care of that. So, and I keep a library of these things going, so every time I come home from TDS, I just, whatever it was, I try to get out there and take my darks, and then I keep it in the library. And make sure you collect as much dark as you collect light. So if you've been shooting 3 hours on an image, make sure you get 3 hours of dark. And the thing is, if you only collect 30 minutes of dark, and you try to subtract that 30 minutes of dark from 3 hours of light, the noise in your result is going to be the worst of the two. It's going to be the same noise as your 30 minutes of dark. So you cannot, because it's a subtraction. You're taking the light and you're subtracting the dark from it. And if the dark is 10 times noisier than the light, you've lost all of your good quality image. So that's why that's important. And flats you do have to do to get out there, and I do flats with t-shirts. So a lot of little painting boxes. I just bring white t-shirts to go there. Don't touch your focus, don't touch your camera. And then the next morning, just do all the flats. All right. There's two little things, and this is it. There's things that I consider outright cheating, things that are wrong, but they work. One is I misbalance my mount, keep the east side of the mount heavy at all times, and that's because it keeps a little pressure on the bearing, so the bearing is all on the 1 gear, so that it's always pulling scope uphill and it's not letting it down. It's the same deal. If you try to push a box up an incline, it's easier to do that smoothly. And if you try to let it down on a rope, the same thing works with gears. So misbalance your mount each side heavy. And if it's a little bit windy, misbalance it some more. If it's really windy, I put mine so heavy on the east side that it's having trouble tracking.
I know that works on equatorial, but I'll find out for you.
Well, this is an equatorial, and that works. That's what you're supposed to do. And as far as I know, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do it with a fork mount too. Is that Bob, does that make sense?